Today we are opening the book on a modern saga, a true David versus Goliath story playing out right now in the world of retail.
It really is. We're looking at the book-selling market, an industry that for decades has been, just completely dominated by one single platform.
And we're looking at how a challenger, one built on a completely different set of values, is managing not just to survive, but to actually thrive.
That's exactly right. We're focusing squarely on bookshop.org. And this isn't just another online store.
Yeah.
It's an e-commerce platform that was explicitly built as infrastructure to redirect revenue and support right back to independent local bookstores.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating model of what you might call ethical competition.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to give you the essential context, that shortcut to being well-informed about the really intricate dynamics of platform monopolies.
And also the surprising economics of competing with a giant like Amazon.
Exactly. And the emerging models of ethical business. We really want to unpack how a company can scale up without selling out its core mission.
And our source material for this is, well, it's pretty rich. We're pulling from some deep competitive analyses of Amazon's market power, some very detailed legal discussions around antitrust, and digital lock-in.
And critically, specific reports on bookshop.org's very distinct B Corp structure and its really ambitious plans for digital expansion, particularly into ebooks.
Which brings us right to the core paradox of this whole thing.
Yeah, the one we have to wrestle with throughout this deep dive. How can a mission-driven company whose entire identity is built on supporting ethical consumerism and community, how can it successfully challenge a behemoth whose long-term strategy, as our sources lay out, is built on maximizing market share, on sustained losses for certain products, and just sheer structural dominance?
It really does feel like trying to fight a tank with a beautifully crafted but maybe fragile moral argument.
It does. Where do you even start?
Well, you have to start by just grounding ourselves in the reality of the landscape. You can't appreciate what bookshop.org has accomplished without first understanding the colossal shadow that Amazon casts. Okay, let's unpack this structural challenge.
The scale of this colossus is what makes the story so compelling. To really grasp Amazon's power, we have to look at the hard numbers. The quantitative evidence that shows its role as a gatekeeper in the publishing world.
Let's start with market share. The consensus estimates, the ones you see most often, suggest Amazon accounts for at least 50% of all book sales in the United States.
50%. Just stop and think about that. One company, half the market.
But that number, 50%, while it sounds dominant, it often really understates the true level of control.
How so?
When you start to incorporate data from secondary and tertiary markets, some analyses push that control significantly higher. They suggest Amazon might be responsible for somewhere between 70, maybe even 80% of all book sales today.
70 to 80%. That's astonishing. Think about what that means if you're a publisher.
Oh, absolutely.
When one single entity controls 3/4 of your potential revenue stream, that one customer, they effectively become the regulator of your entire industry.
Precisely. And if we narrow our focus just to the digital side, where technology creates an even deeper lock-in, the dominance becomes even more concentrated.
So ebooks.
Ebooks, yes. In that sector specifically, Amazon controls at least 67% of the market. And again, just like with print, depending on the source and how they measure it, that figure is often cited as rising well over 80%.
So it's not just a major player in digital books. For a lot of readers, it is the digital book market.
That's a perfect way to put it. And we have to ask, what has been the historical consequence of this rise?
Right. What did the world look like before?
Well, the sources are crystal clear on this. A massive structural upheaval in traditional retail. Amazon entered the book-selling scene in 1995. Before that, the market was supported by thousands of independent shops.
So what were the numbers like back then?
In 1995, there were roughly 5,500 independent bookstores operating across about 7,000 locations in the U.S., a really vibrant ecosystem.
Okay, and then fast forward.
Fast forward to 2022, and that number had just plummeted by over 63%.
Wow.
Leaving just over 2,000 independent bookstores. That dramatic contraction from over 5,500 down to 2,000 is a direct, measurable consequence of the rise of a platform that prioritizes speed and cost above everything else.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because we have to talk about the economic strategy, the core philosophy that allowed Amazon to get to this level of dominance. Their approach, It really defies traditional business logic, which assumes that companies have to prioritize short-term profits. Amazon, for the vast majority of its history, did the exact opposite.
They did. They explicitly prioritized what they called market leadership. That and aggressive, sustained growth over any immediate or even medium-term profitability.
And that strategy is what allows them to use competitive tactics that would just crush rivals, but wouldn't necessarily trigger the full scrutiny of conventional antitrust law.
Let's clarify that a bit because it's so important in this context. Traditional laws against what's called predatory pricing, they often operate on a specific assumption, which is the assumption that predation is irrational for a business unless the firm can eventually recoup those initial losses.
But charging consumers super competitive prices later on, so jacking up the price once the competition is gone.
Exactly. But Amazon, by focusing on market control and integrating bookselling into its much broader ecosystem, web services, fulfillment, Prime membership, it can sustain losses in the book vertical almost indefinitely.
Because the goal isn't profit on the book itself.
Not at all. The goal is capturing the customer for the entire ecosystem. They're prioritizing the lifetime value of that customer and critically control the distribution pipeline. And that's a huge challenge to traditional antitrust thinking.
We saw this play out perfectly in the foundational case study of ebooks. I mean, when Amazon launched the Kindle and the ebook market, they just weaponized pricing.
They absolutely did. They established the benchmark for a best-selling ebook at $9.99.
Right, I remember that. Everything was $9.99.
And the critical detail here, the one that everyone misses, is that publishers were often selling these titles to Amazon wholesale for $14.99 or even more.
So Amazon was willing to buy a title for, say, $15 and then turn around and sell it for $10.
Taking a direct loss of $5 or more on every single unit sold.
It's a deliberate loss leader strategy. I mean, they weren't making money on the book.
No.
But they were driving the adoption of the Kindle e-reader hardware. They were building the foundation of their digital library ecosystem.
And they were essentially training consumers that the normal price for a new book should be far, far lower than the actual cost of production and distribution.
And the strategy worked.
It worked flawlessly. It led directly to their long-term dominance, securing them somewhere between 65% and 74% of the e-reader market.
And once they achieved that structural lead, what happened?
Well, then they could leverage their position. They could impose higher fees and more restrictive terms on publishers, using that gatekeeper power to claw back the financial losses they took during the market capture phase.
So the price to you, the consumer, might not skyrocket.
Right?
But the terms to the publisher and the author certainly become dictated by Amazon.
Without a doubt. So once the customer is captured, what are the technical and legal mechanisms Amazon uses to maintain this dominance? This is how they build the infamous walled garden.
The lock-in.
The lock-in is incredibly robust and multifaceted. It relies on proprietary formats, like Amazon-specific file types for ebooks, and that's combined with mandatory digital rights management, or DRM, software.
And that combination creates these tightly controlled, closed environments.
Closed environment sounds pretty benign, but for you, the consumer, what it means is you've purchased a license to read the content, but you haven't purchased the freedom to use that content wherever you want.
So think about it this way. You try to take a large paid library of Kindle books and just move it over to a competitor's device, like a Kobo or a Nook.
You simply can't, or at least not easily or lawfully, because of that DRM encryption. It essentially binds your content to the Amazon ecosystem.
And this lack of interoperability, that's the key term here.
It's what fundamentally establishes Amazon's position as a structural gatekeeper. The European Commission has highlighted this over and over again. It creates massive switching costs for consumers.
Explain that. What's a switching cost in this context?
If you own a library of, say, 500 Kindle books, switching to another platform means you lose access to all that content you paid for.
You'd have to repurchase it all.
You'd have to repurchase it, you'd potentially have to buy new hardware, and you'd have to retrain yourself on a whole new interface. Those costs, that hassle, is what locks you in, regardless of how great a new competitor's prices or service might be.
So the dominance isn't just about convenience or a low initial price then. It's about making it technically and practically almost impossible to leave once you're inside that wall.
And this technical structural advantage allows Amazon to dictate terms to publishers because publishers know they cannot forgo that massive distribution channel without suffering catastrophic financial repercussions.
It's a profound reversal of power in the industry. I mean, historically, the publisher was the gatekeeper between the author and the consumer. They controlled distribution.
Exactly. And now, the ebook provider controls the essential operating system, the technical infrastructure that authors and publishers must go through to reach their audience. If you want a wide audience, you have to comply with the rules of the platform, even if those rules are detrimental to the health of the broader bookselling ecosystem.
Okay, so it is against this backdrop of entrenched institutional dominance, this technical and financial fortress, that bookshop.org emerged.
They did. They launched in the UK in November 2020, right in the heart of the pandemic.
A time when online shopping became an absolute necessity, but also when the desire to support local businesses was really peaking.
And their entire existence is a direct challenge, philosophical and strategic, to the Amazon model. Their mission, as their founder Andy Hunter framed it, is to mimic Amazon's efficiency in terms of delivery and ease of use.
But to infuse that system with ethical support for local bookstores.
Yes, it is infrastructure that's designed to redistribute wealth, not consolidate it.
And central to this whole identity is their B Corp status. We should probably take a moment to understand what this means for you, the consumer, and for the bookstores they serve.
Yeah, what is a B Corp? A B Corp, or benefit corporation, is a specific legal structure. They are certified by a nonprofit called B Lab for meeting really rigorous standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency.
And the key legal difference is that, unlike a standard public corporation, which is legally obligated to prioritize short-term shareholder maximization, the very model that defines Amazon B Corp is legally required to prioritize long-term stakeholder value.
And those stakeholders include the employees, the community, the environment, and, critically for bookshop.org, the independent bookstores themselves.
So that certification immediately attracts and legitimizes their appeal to the ethical consumer.
It really does. It provides the assurance that when you click Buy on bookshop.org, the money isn't just vanishing into one massive company, it is structurally flowing back into the community.
And that mission is translated directly into their financial mechanics, which are completely transparent. Let's break down the commission structure, because it's really the heart of their ethical infrastructure.
The model is, I think, brilliant in its simplicity and its fairness. We'll use the UK business model as our example here. There are three main channels through which they share revenue.
Okay, what's the first?
First, independent shops that actively generate a sale, let's say by linking a book list from their own website or their social media. They earn a very generous 30% commission directly on that sale.
30% is a fantastic margin. That's certainly way higher than what they would typically get from standard affiliate programs.
It is. The second stream involves other affiliates. Think book influencers, media sites, bloggers, who also help drive sales. They earn a 10% commission.
Okay, so far so good. But this next part is the real genius.
This is the mechanism that elevates the whole platform above standard affiliate marketing. It's the shared pool.
The shared pool.
An additional 10% of all sales made on the site that are not attributed to a specific bookshop or affiliate. That money goes into this shared pool.
And that communal fund is then regularly distributed equally among all the participating bookshops on the platform.
Right, regardless of how much online selling they themselves are doing.
So wait, even if I, as a customer, just type bookshop.org into my browser and buy a book without choosing a specific shop to support, 10% of that sale still goes back to the collective body of independent bookstores.
Exactly. It's a recognition that every single purchase supports the infrastructure, and that infrastructure should, in turn, support everyone. And this shared pool mechanism provides real, measurable, and often life-changing support for these small businesses.
We just had to pull this anecdote because it perfectly encapsulates the power of this model. We found the story of Linda Miller, who runs Turning Page Bookstore in South Carolina.
And she was facing a devastating, truly existential crisis for her business.
What happened?
Belinda faced a terrible situation. She had a nasty mold outbreak that was caused by an air conditioner malfunction.
Oh, no.
And it meant she had to relocate her entire operation immediately. She was struggling to cover the immense moving fees, securing new rent, replacing damaged stock. I mean, she was quite literally in danger of shutting down permanently because of an unforeseen infrastructure failure.
But then
she checked her bookshop account, which she hadn't looked at in a while because she was, focused on the crisis at hand.
And she discovered her share from the shared pool was over $19,000.
$19,000. That revenue, derived purely from that collective community fund, was enough to stabilize her finances, cover her moving expenses, and secure her business's survival. That's the model at work.
It's infrastructure acting as an emergency fund. It's something a solitary independent shop could never, ever achieve on its own.
And the overall measurable impact really backs this up. Since launching in 2020, Bookshop.org has raised over $39 million for independent bookstores globally.
$39 million. And how much in the UK specifically?
That includes $4.5 million for UK bookshops specifically. And despite operating against the strongest competitor in the world, the company is seeing robust sales growth. They're reporting 50% year-over-year expansion.
So the growth is clear, and the ethical mission is definitely delivering results. But let's go back to that core challenge: sustainability. How do they sustain this growth when they admit they cannot possibly compete with Amazon on price or on logistics speed?
Right, that's the key. The sources suggest their competitive strategy focuses on something entirely different.
Which is?
They focus on service, simplicity, and values alignment. Mark Thornton, who's the Senior Partnership Manager for Bookshop.org in the UK, he emphasized that the goal is for customers to feel good and understand they were making a difference.
So they're selling a feeling and a mission, not just a commodity.
Exactly. And crucially, they differentiate themselves by providing a human touch. Their recommendations do not rely on impersonal algorithms.
This is a subtle, but I think a profound contrast to Amazon. Amazon's algorithm prioritizes bestsellers and titles with massive sales histories.
Which inherently makes it harder for low-profile books, debut authors, or niche titles to get any visibility.
But Bookshop.org, by relying on affiliated shops and human curators, offers a specialized point of view that, as the sources say, people really celebrate.
Exactly. The human curation gives you, the consumer, a much better discovery experience for certain types of books. You're not just being told what everyone else bought. You're being guided by someone who actually knows literature.
And the CEO, Andy Hunter, he recognizes that the customer experience, the CX, it has to be continuously excellent to justify that slightly higher price or that slightly longer wait time. He noted that CX improvements are a moving target. Their success has allowed them to hire dedicated staff for the first time, a UX engineer and a head of product, to focus intensely on continuous improvement, accessibility, and service.
So they understand that competing ethically doesn't mean you can ignore the basic demands of modern e-commerce. You still have to deliver.
You still have to deliver. And this brings us to the most difficult phase of their strategy: competing in the digital sphere, specifically ebooks, where Amazon's dominance is most aggressively protected by technology and market control.
This is a genuine battlefront.
Yeah.
We are talking about the planned launch of their own platform for selling digital books. They are going head-to-head with the Kindle ecosystem.
It's a huge move.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's explicitly framed as an aggressive tool in the fight against Amazon. That's a quote from Nicole Vanderbilt, the managing director of Bookshop.org UK. They plan to launch this new platform in the UK in late 2025.
And the terms they're offering to independent bookstores are, frankly, incredible.
So they're game-changing.
Independent bookshops will earn 100% of the profit from ebook sales that they generate through the platform.
100% of the profit. I mean, that completely rewrites the margin structure for these small businesses on digital sales.
It's an unprecedented commitment to their stakeholders. And here is the crucial element for you, the consumer. They are aiming for price parity.
Meaning the ebooks will be priced the same as they are on Amazon.
Exactly. So you are not paying a moral premium for choosing the ethical option. You are simply choosing where the profit from your purchase goes.
And they are launching with a massive catalog, too, over 1 million ebooks from all the major publishers. So this immediately makes them a viable content alternative.
And that core mechanism, the shared pool, that remains foundational even in the digital age.
That's right. Profits from any orders that don't have a specified bookshop will still be added to that communal pool and distributed among all the participating shops. So you can buy a digital book and still support the physical shop down your street.
This digital expansion is just such a necessary move. It's acknowledging how the reading market has evolved. As one bookseller, Nick Bottomley, put it, "Our true love might be print, but ebooks are an important part of the lives of so many readers."
You have to meet the reader where they are. You can't just wish the market was different.
And the data confirms this necessity. A YouGov poll this year showed that nearly a quarter of Britons now prefer ebooks over other formats.
Right, so Bookshop.org simply cannot ignore that segment if they want to remain a relevant alternative to the market leader.
And it's not just ebooks. They're also planning to launch audiobooks in 2026.
To compete in that rapidly growing digital segment. You have to acknowledge that Audible, for example, has seen 20% annual growth in that space. You have to be there.
But now we have to confront the elephant in the digital room, that structural challenge we talked about earlier, the DRM roadblock.
This is the toughest technological hurdle they face, and it directly limits their ability to compete effectively against Amazon's established market share.
And bookshop.org itself had to acknowledge this reality.
They did. Due to Amazon's proprietary digital rights management software, it is currently technically impossible for a consumer to buy a DRM-protected ebook from bookshop.org and read it on their existing Amazon Kindle device.
And that immediately cuts off access to a colossal segment of the market, the existing Kindle user base, which, as we said, holds up to 74% of the e-reader market.
You can't ask a customer to repurchase hundreds of dollars worth of content or sacrifice their entire current library just to switch to the ethical platform. That's the switching cost in action. The DRM creates that lock-in.
So bookshop.org has to tackle this interoperability problem through strategic workarounds. What's the plan?
Well, the most immediate solution is collaboration. They are working with the e-reader company Kobo, major competitor to Kindle, to support Kobo devices later this year.
So that provides an immediate, dedicated hardware path for readers who want to ethically source their content. If you have a Kobo, you're good to go.
Exactly. And their ambitions go even further. They're looking toward the long-term goal of offering their own ink device.
That would be a massive strategic investment.
Huge. But it's one that would directly challenge the Kindle's hardware dominance and provide a fully open and integrated ecosystem for the ethical reader.
Andy Hunter, the CEO, frames this not just as a business challenge, but as a philosophical goal. The vision is to break ebooks out of the walled garden Amazon has built.
And his frustration is that ebooks are disconnected from the social web.
What does that mean exactly? How is the current ebook experience walled off?
Well, think about a physical book. You can easily quote it, share it, lend it, review it publicly. If you see an interesting article online, you can click a link and buy a product immediately.
Right.
Hunter wants a future where readers can easily share quotes from their ebooks, click a link, buy the book, and start reading immediately on whatever device they happen to be on.
That simple feedback loop, buy, share, read, which is standard for pretty much all other digital media, is currently restricted by Amazon's closed system.
So their digital strategy isn't just about replicating Amazon's functionality. It's about creating a superior and more integrated reading experience.
And Hunter has a two-phase plan for this. Phase one is just ensuring they build a great reading experience in their own app and making the process of switching from Kindle to supporting local bookstores as seamless as they possibly can.
And phase two is exploring how these digital platforms can facilitate new ways of communication between authors and fans. It's allowing ebooks to evolve beyond just being simple digital replicas of print books.
So they're aiming for community and engagement, the same human element that their physical bookstore partners rely on, but translating it into the digital realm.
Which is something Amazon's strictly commercial algorithm-based system really struggles to achieve.
Now, it's crucial that we put bookshop.org's online success into its wider context, because it is happening at the same time as a surprising, almost counterintuitive trend.
The resurgence of the physical independent bookstore.
Exactly. This is a key finding from our sources, and it provides a huge uplift to bookshop.org's mission. The pandemic initially forced everyone online.
But it seems to have reinforced the value and the necessity of the physical store as well.
And the numbers confirm this healthy trajectory. By 2021, bookshop sales were already back up to their pre-pandemic levels.
And if you look at the health of the industry long-term, the American Booksellers Association reported an 11% year-over-year increase in membership in early 2024.
Which confirms that since 2010, the U.S. has seen the opening of 250 new independent stores. That reverses decades of steady decline.
And this boom speaks directly to the permanence of the new hybrid model, the online presence and the physical presence. They're no longer optional complements, they're essential partners.
There's a perfect example of this in Lawrence, Kansas, at the Raven Bookstore.
The owner, Danny Kane, he admitted that before the pandemic hit, only about 1% of his sales were online.
Just 1%. It was a total afterthought.
And he said that online shipping, quote, saved us during the closure periods. And now online sales account for a robust 30% of their revenue.
So they realized this wasn't just a temporary blip.
No, they even moved to a bigger physical location, specifically to accommodate and double down on their shipping and fulfillment operation. As one editorial director for Publishers Weekly noted, independent booksellers all realized It can be done, and it has to be done. Nobody's going to go backward.
The infrastructure has changed forever.
It has.
So why are customers returning to physical spaces and ethical alternatives with so much enthusiasm, even when instant delivery is just a click away? What are the cultural drivers fueling this structural shift?
The sources identify some really powerful sociological drivers. The first is an overwhelming need for community, a direct reaction to years of digital isolation.
People are actively seeking third spaces, places that aren't home or work where they can engage in shared activities.
And bookstores, which have always fostered literary community, are benefiting massively from this. Ticketing platforms like Eventbrite and Meetup reported spikes of 10% to 24% in book club listings.
And these gatherings are happening everywhere, not just in traditional bookstore backrooms, but in breweries, in specialized dating events. The bookstore provides the natural anchor point for this community resurgence.
The second major driver is the desire for personalization and curation, that human element we keep talking about. Consumers are reaching a saturation point with endless scrolling and clicking through algorithms.
They want the personalized experience of browsing physical shelves and engaging with knowledgeable staff. This point of view, the identity of the independent seller, that's their key value proposition against Amazon's machine efficiency.
The algorithm is designed to maximize your basket size based on your past behavior.
Right.
But the human curator is designed to maximize discovery and delight based on shared taste and expertise.
And this curation is becoming intensely specialized, which is helping new businesses thrive. New stores are focusing sharply on identity.
For example, the number of Black-owned stores has more than doubled since 2019.
Or by niching down into specific genres like romance or mystery. This provides a sense of belonging and a highly targeted experience that the broad, massive inventory of Amazon just struggles to deliver effectively.
What's so fascinating is how technology, which initially seemed like the villain in this story, is now serving as an amplifier for these physical stores.
You're talking about social media.
Absolutely. Platforms like #BookTalk, where users create these short, emotive videos shouting out their favorite titles, have a direct and powerful influence on sales.
And these trends drive physical traffic into stores. They also encourage online buying from ethical sources. Independent bookstores are becoming very adept at translating their physical personality into viral digital content.
And the connection here is direct. TikTok itself has partnered with bookshop.org, linking that online ethical marketplace directly into this major source of consumer discovery.
It's creating this virtuous cycle where digital virality supports physical businesses.
And the biggest players are noticing this structural shift. The largest remaining national chain, Barnes & Noble, is strategically adapting to this independent vibe.
Right. After spending years focusing on the superstore model, they are now opening stores of varied, smaller sizes.
And crucially, they're giving their local managers far more control over inventory.
So they're actively taking cues from the successful independent shops, focusing more on books, less on sideline junk, and prioritizing the in-store customer experience over just sheer scale.
When Goliath starts mimicking David's strategy, you know David's approach is working.
Absolutely. This shift underscores what the American Booksellers Association found. The hybrid, or omnichannel, approach integrating a strong online presence like bookshop.org with a vibrant physical space is now imperative for survival and growth.
And for independent shops, this integration, according to ABA data, can lead to an estimated 12% increase in overall revenue. The future of bookselling is defined by this essential balance.
So this deep dive has shown that competition against these entrenched platform giants is possible, but it requires innovation, it requires patience, and a fundamentally different set of values. The story of bookshop.org and the wider independent resurgence really provides a blueprint for successful modern competition.
And we've identified two clear paths to success against these giants. The first is structural, creating what you could call ethical infrastructure.
Right.
Bookshop.org's revenue-sharing model, that shared 10% pool, and its B Corp focus on stakeholder value, proves that you can scale an e-commerce platform successfully when you lead with a mission that aligns with consumer values and provides tangible benefits to the community it serves.
And the second path is fundamentally human. It's about leveraging the human element.
Which means prioritizing community, authentic personalization, and expert curation, the things that complex algorithms and efficient logistics engines just struggle to replicate.
And consumers are demonstrating through their wallets that they are increasingly willing to choose alternatives, even if they can't match Amazon on coup speed or the absolute lowest price.
When the mission and the customer experience align with their personal values?
Yet, we have to circle back to the structural issues. While bookshop.org is diligently building its own parallel digital ecosystem, the challenge of the walled garden, specifically Amazon's proprietary DRM that locks content onto the Kindle, remains the single greatest inhibitor to genuine free competition in the ebook market.
And this is where the legal and policy debate takes over. The sources we reviewed argue that if we truly want to foster competitive balance and lower those switching costs for consumers, competition law may need to mandate interoperability, to force dominant platforms like Amazon to open the Kindle ecosystem so that content purchased elsewhere can flow freely onto their hardware.
This raises a really profound question about the nature of these dominant platforms.
It does.
If they are so dominant that they become unavoidable channels for authors, publishers, and consumers, if they are essentially acting as essential facilities or digital utilities for the modern economy.
Then should the expectation of openness and interchangeability be legally enforced? Should the consumer expectation of reading flexibility force all players to operate under new, interoperable rules?
So we leave you with this provocative thought. In a market where ethical infrastructure now offers a viable path forward, what responsibility do you, the consumer, hold in either reinforcing or dismantling these digital walled gardens with your next purchase?
And if the bookshop.org model can successfully challenge a monopoly in the book industry, what other highly concentrated sectors, like, say, ticketing or certain specialized retail categories, might benefit from a similar ethical, revenue-sharing infrastructure? The blueprint for scaling without selling out is now laid out for the world to see.